Hi Homeworthy, I'm Erica. Welcome to my home in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'd love to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica Vevurka. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I sell vintage home decor online on Instagram through Dogwood Interiors, but that's not my primary job. I also work full-time in business development for a research nonprofit, and I've spent almost my entire career working in nonprofits. My style is Grandmillennial meets traditional with maximalist tendencies. So Grandmillennial is a style that's really popular right now. It's lots of bright colors, needlepoint, blue and white, chinoiserie. I've always gravitated toward that. I consider blue and white a neutral. And then I also have traditional style elements throughout my house. I love English pieces. I'll show some of those later on as we tour the house, but I love Old English. I love mahogany and some of those warmer pieces, brass. And then I'm a little bit of a maximalist. I like to think that I'm organized chaos, but I love stuff. And I love decorating my home and filling it with collections. If I have a console table with an open bottom, I'll have something on the top, put something on the bottom. So my style has really evolved over the years and in this space. And I feel like it finally feels like me, and not just like me, but like my family too. Welcome to my front room. When we first moved into this house, I honestly wasn't sure what I was gonna do with this space. I grew up in a 1,200 square foot slab. We didn't have a front room, but I really love this room. It's one of my favorites in the house. When we have guests over, this is where we gather. It's really cozy. I wanted to make it a space where you have a comfy couch, a comfy chair, lots of side tables to put drinks, and a lot of room for like kids, if we have kids who are coming over as well, to play. One of my biggest design challenges when I was decorating this room is that there is a huge vent on this wall. And I wanted to be able to hide it, but of course I needed to make sure that, the air could circulate. So I found this bamboo screen at an auction, and I decided to put it in the corner to both hide the vent and to also soften this corner up. So I just absolutely love this bamboo screen, and I designed my room pretty much around this bamboo screen. I also like to incorporate lots of different types of fabrics. I actually don't know what I'm doing with fabrics, but I know what I like. And I just assume if I'm buying what I like, that it's all gonna end up working together. So you'll see I have this, wicker chair here. I have a fish needlepoint stool that I absolutely love. You'll see throughout my home, I am obsessed with Staffordshire and Staffordshire style dogs. Staffordshire style dogs were made in Staffordshire, England, and they were a symbol of status. And they also were romanticized. So if there were like seafaring husbands, wives would put the Staffordshire dogs in the window to show whether or not their husband was at home or at sea. Most of them are ceramic, but I also love them in pillow form. And you can even see one of my prized possessions that I just got and was so excited to show off in this home tour was my King Cavalier Staffordshire style needlepoint ottoman. I'd say about 95% of this room is vintage or secondhand. I think the exception are these curtains, which I got from Target. I think they're the kids line, and the curtain rod holders. All of these decorations, all of this furniture has really come together over time. I'm a huge proponent for slow design. And by slow design, I mean that I am waiting to find the right piece for my home before I bring it in. So I try not to rush through decorating any space in my home. And one of my favorite pieces is this Chippendale couch. I found it at an antique mall around here. I absolutely loved it. It was above my budget, but it was there for 9 months. And I ended up asking the antique mall if they would give me a discount, knowing whether or not they said no or they only took $5 off, I had to have this couch. I absolutely love the fabric and really find it to be a centerpiece of the room. I love decorating a coffee table. When I'm decorating a coffee table, I like to put a lot of books on there. It really helps cover up the blank space. I always make sure I have coasters, a little box to hide all the odds and ends, especially when guests are coming over. Really, when decorating, I think about what do I need to be able to hide and what do I want to display? And I always make sure I have little storage everywhere to just basically shove things in when I need to make a room presentable. I also love to incorporate plants and candles into my coffee table as well. So there's enough space here still for someone to put a coaster in their drink, but it's still much like any other part of the room, a decorated space. And I have, young kids, and people always ask me, how do you keep your coffee table decorated and have 2 young kids? And especially when they were younger, I would just move everything off that was breakable during the day and then put it back at night. If it's not breakable, it's not a problem. They can play with it. I also love these bookshelves. These built-ins were not a part of the home when we first bought it. I was inspired online, and my father-in-law and husband actually built them. I probably drove them crazy because my style evolved while they were building them. Originally, they were supposed to be like IKEA cabinets across the bottom, but instead I found this beautiful piece of furniture that I wanted to put there instead. And I absolutely love decorating bookshelves. To me, decorating bookshelves, the way my mind works, it's like a puzzle that I'm putting together. So since this is a more formal sitting room, I wanted to have a monochromatic look with all navy books. These are all books that I found at the thrift store, estate sales, some online auctions. And so I wanted that monochromatic look, and then to just display couple pieces that I love on either end of the shelf. So I love chinoiserie, as I mentioned. I have a beautiful rose Canton jar up on the shelves. I have more dogs, art tucked in too. And then of course, I want this room to be functional. I also have a little basket here where I just tuck my blanket away because I want this beautiful couch to really shine. One recent find that I had, this room looked totally different a couple months ago, which isn't unusual for me. I always joke that I need to finish decorating a room so I can immediately start redecorating it. But I found this Theodore Alexander console table at auction, and I fell in love with it because it had these swords and like a little gallery tray around the back, and then brass lion heads in the back here. So I absolutely had to have it. I told myself when I won it at auction that I could always sell it if I didn't find a space for it. So we shuffled some furniture around, and I just absolutely love how this looks in the dark burl mahogany on it. I think this is also a great example of some of my styles mixing together. I have these French antique urns, which are a little bit more traditional, mixed in with my monkey lamp and my blue and white. So I just love this because I feel like it is really representative of my Grandmillennial meets traditional, and of course my maximalist tendencies. I have some space down here, so I'm going to put these really cute Staffordshire style dogs that I've already talked about and that I love. My favorite space in my home is probably this dining room because I'm absolutely obsessed with this wallpaper. I would wallpaper every room in my house if I could. I think right now I'm at 4 spaces, so I'm almost there. But I just love this space so much because it's really where I've gotten to put a lot of collections, a lot of my personality in. The dining room is a special place where we celebrate birthdays, holidays. So I just love this space so much and the memories that I'm able to make in it. And also I just love the direction that it's gone and how much it feels like me. All right, now I'll take you into the dining room. Follow me. Welcome to my dining room. As I mentioned, this is my favorite room in the home, and I'd be lying if one of those reasons wasn't this gorgeous wallpaper. When we first moved into this house, the dining room was just a dark blue colored paint. It really wasn't a pretty dark blue either. So I had my husband and my father-in-law wallpaper this room in grass cloth paper. And I swear, as soon as they hung the last paper themselves, it was already peeling off the wall. So I knew it wasn't going to be permanent. And when I found this pattern, it's Hydrangea Drape by Schumacher, I knew I had to have it. I also knew that I had to hire a professional. So I got it hung and I couldn't be happier with the results. I was worried it was going to be too much in this room, but I actually think it's perfect. I recently had the wallpaper come back because this alcove ceiling was not wallpapered, and I thought it would look so good and really be a statement piece in this alcove, and I'm so glad I had her come back. I had wallpaper remnants, so it really was a couple hours of work, and I love the way that it looks. This is another room where 95% of the pieces are either vintage or secondhand. I really believe in a collected home. I really believe in slow design. And it's funny how things come together because I got this room wallpapered and then I was at the antique mall a month later and I found this pair of dining room chairs that could not match more perfectly with this wallpaper. And it's the kind of thing where I don't think I could have planned that. And I just love the thrill of finding something that I didn't know I needed that is going to work perfectly in my home. Another one of my favorite pieces is this china cabinet. It is vintage. It has gorgeous hand-painted chinoiserie landscape along the bottom as well as etched around the border here. I found this off Facebook. I had my husband drive 45 minutes. The woman who was selling it, her mother and father had both passed, and this didn't fit in her home. And her mom had actually lived on the West Coast and had driven this china cabinet from the West Coast to the East Coast back in the 60s or 70s when this was produced. It even has its original light bulbs, and that's another reason why I love vintage, because while that china cabinet wouldn't work in her home, I am honored to be able to help keep that memory alive and have this china cabinet in my space. And I always think of the woman whenever I see this piece. So it's really special to me. I mentioned that I'm a maximalist. So I love collecting pieces that speak to me and displaying them like in this china cabinet. To me, being a maximalist doesn't mean just finding whatever and shoving it on a shelf. If you look here, I really wanted to make sure that I had some cohesion. So the main items I put in this china cabinet, I decided I wanted to decorate with blue and white, which is a favorite of mine, silver, so I have lots of silver plate pieces in here in particular, and then Staffordshire style dogs, which I love. Some of these are antique, some are vintage, some are newer reproduction that I got secondhand, but I just love how it all comes together. I'm not afraid. If you look closely, you'll see some of these pieces have chips or cracks. I really think that's the beauty of vintage and antique. These pieces have stood the test of time. They're not going to be perfect, and that never bothers me. So I have some pieces in here that are chipped, but ultimately I just love the story that this tells and how this looks like, to me, almost like looking at a work of art. So I absolutely love my china cabinet. It makes me really happy, and I add pieces to it as I find them. These gilt candle sconces are what I like to call a foster fail. I was supposed to sell them in my shop, and there was someone who was really interested in them, and I hung them on the wall to take a picture. And as soon as I hung them on the wall, I said, I'm so sorry, I can't sell these. These are absolutely stunning. They're vintage. Like I said, they're made in Italy. They're nothing I would ever be able to afford if I hadn't found them. I think I found these on Facebook Marketplace. So that's also what I love about incorporating vintage and antique. Lots of times you can find things at great deals you wouldn't be able to find if you were to walk into, a high-end antique store, or if you could find it, you might not be able to afford it. And I just love these so much. I love anything with a bow and tassel detail. This piece is a little bit more of a contemporary piece of art. It is a limited edition print. It was given to us by my husband's uncle, who is an interior designer. And this artist, McKnight, he actually painted pictures for the Clintons as well. I think he did their holiday photos or something, maybe their portrait. But I just love this piece so much because even though it's a little bit more contemporary, I still think it reflects the Grandmillennial traditional aesthetic that I love. And the gold frame just looks perfect on this wall. So I love this piece. It's such a special piece and one that I'll always have hanging in my home. So I got this table and these chairs completely separately, but both were off Facebook Marketplace. This dining room table was made in England, and I got it from an older couple who was downsizing. So again, it was an opportunity for me to bring their memories into my home. They were so happy that a couple with a young growing family had this dining room table because it meant so much to them. So this is a piece that's really special to me. Even though I don't know any of these people who I am buying their furniture or decor from, it feels like there's a little piece of them in this furniture, and it just makes it really special to me. So I love this table. It has lots of scratches and imperfections, but again, to me, it tells the story of lots of different meals being had at this table, and I don't want anything to be too perfect in my home because I want my home to look like there are people who use the furniture, who eat at the dining room table. So I love this table so much. I also got these chairs off Facebook Marketplace, and they are Pier 1, and they actually had a gray fabric on them that I didn't love. And I was at the thrift store. I happened to find a whole roll of fabric for $20, and I found a seamstress on Facebook as well. She recovered these for me, and I couldn't be happier with how they look. I think they coordinate really nicely with the wallpaper. And if you have a bold statement wallpaper or something else in your home, don't be afraid to incorporate pattern. If you keep everything else neutral, it almost doesn't work. I'm trying to keep pattern that coordinates nicely with my wallpaper as I'm decorating this room. So I absolutely love how this came together. And again, it came together over time. Nothing in my home came together overnight, but I love that it ends up with this collected look. I think I mentioned that about 95% of probably any given room in my home is vintage or secondhand. I think an exception here would be this light fixture. This light fixture is actually from Pottery Barn Kids, but I absolutely love how it looks. I'm not yet able or in the market for a crystal chandelier. I hope one day to replace this with a crystal chandelier, but for now, I actually really love the white beads and how it coordinates with the rest of the room. It is a little bit more modern, maybe a little bit more contemporary, but I absolutely love it. So don't be afraid to shop kids decor websites either, because you may find some pieces that work in any room in your home. I started my Instagram shop, Dogwood Interiors, 5 years ago. I had just had my second child, my daughter. It was during the pandemic, and I just felt a little lost. I think we all did. And like I was losing a little bit of my personality and myself and just being a mom and working full time. I have always loved vintage. I get that love from my grandparents. My grandmother's house was full of beautiful vintage and antique pieces, and she also loved a good deal. So she was always going to thrift stores. She and I would go to Home Goods all the time. And my grandfather, while he worked in high pressure boilers, he was a woodworker on the side. So he really instilled in me the importance of wood furniture. He built a ton of jewelry boxes. He built a bunch of furniture that I had over the years at my home. So I've always had that love, and I just decided to start selling. I was decorating my own home, and I was finding so many pieces that I loved that I couldn't possibly decorate my entire house with. So it started with Facebook Marketplace pickups. Because it was the pandemic, I would drive around, pick up things, post them on Instagram, and it's grown from there. I kept saying I would quit as soon as it didn't become fun anymore, and here I am 5 years later, and I really consider it my second business. My advice for beginners who want to get into vintage shopping, because we have the internet, because we have social media, it's really easy to find accounts or to find spaces online that really speak to you. And then as you're out and about and you see a piece that you love, even if you don't know where you're gonna put it, If you love it, if it speaks to you, if it's in your budget, I always say get it, because I guarantee you're gonna find a place for it, or you're gonna replace something that you don't love as much with it. So thrift stores are a great place to start. Antique malls I also love. Usually they can be on the more affordable side, and there's so many different types of vintage styles out there that at an antique mall it's pretty eclectic, and you can walk around and figure out what really speaks to you. Vintage is also timeless, so you don't have to worry about it being trendy and going out of style. I think right now where we are, there is vintage styles showing up in Target. You can get faux oil paintings. You can get faux brass pieces. And so while vintage isn't trendy, it's just like an animal print that comes up in fashion every now and again and becomes more popular. That's the same thing that happens with vintage. So you can invest in pieces and know that you could have them forever because they are so timeless and classic. Or if you get tired of them, they still retain their value and you can donate them or find a new home for them through Facebook Marketplace or gifting or whatever else. All right, now let's head over to the kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. When we moved into this home 8 years ago, one of the first things I wanted to do was renovate the kitchen. In fact, I told my husband I wouldn't buy this house unless we could renovate the kitchen because it was original from the 80s, 90s. So in addition to the cabinets not fully hitting the ceiling and being just this wood brown that you don't really see often anymore, the entire kitchen area was tile. And the countertops were a penny tile. So they were like about 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter tile with grout everywhere. So it grossed me out. I mean, the amount of crumbs and food, and I think the appliances were about just as old as the house was. So I was 8 months pregnant with my son. We still had our apartment that we were renting, and my husband, my brother-in-law, and my father-in-law demoed the kitchen to get it ready for the renovation. And there was about 2 inches of concrete underneath the tile that they had a demo through. It took them 2 days. I think they were expecting it to be a 1-day project. And then we worked with a contractor to design this kitchen. This was my first design project, so I really wanted to create something warm, inviting, cozy, and timeless. So I went with a white kitchen. I've always wanted white cabinets, and I went with the white theme throughout. One of my favorite pieces are these kitchen tiles on my backsplash. While they're white, they do have a lot of movement to them, and I think they just look perfect. A lot of people were telling me I needed to get a gray backsplash, and I didn't want a gray backsplash, and I ended up with something that I absolutely loved. I think the kitchen is another really important place to decorate, and don't ignore the kitchen because it's also a room of utility. So a few ways that I like to decorate my kitchen. I have this Tolware tray that I hung above the stove, and it's food resistant, so it's metal, so things can splatter on it. We can wipe it off, no problem. I like to display, what we use to cook with, our cooking utensils, our teaspoons, our olive oil, our salt. And then I also have really pretty canisters. These are actually empty. I could put flour, sugar, coffee, tea in them. I don't, but they're really pretty to display, along with the cutting boards and some silver plate trays. I also always tell people, put art in your kitchen. I have this landscape hanging underneath my cabinet. I love it. It's not perfect. It was an amateur artist for sure, but something about it is just so sweet to me. I just love the charm that it adds. And when we also redesigned this kitchen, I wanted to have some open shelving. There was a cabinet here. I wanted to have some open shelving so I could display some pieces that I loved and also have a little coffee nook. Again, I love with design putting out the things that you use every day and showing them off in a pretty manner. So I have my apothecary jar full of K-cups. I have some vintage coffee stirrers in this vintage Blue Willow creamer cup. I have sugar in this sugar bowl, but it's a packet. I have my coffee mugs displayed, and then other pieces that just speak to me and I feel like work in the kitchen. I love decorating with Oriental rugs. I actually got this from my mother-in-law and father-in-law. It was rolled up in their garage. They had to get it cleaned. I think their dog had an accident on it and they're planning on getting rid of it. And I was like, well, let's get it cleaned and then I'll take it in the kitchen. I love a rug over hardwoods, especially when you're standing at the sink. It just provides some cushion for your feet. So I always try to decorate with Oriental rugs. And I have this color, this darker red throughout my home. You'll see it in my hallway and also in my TV room. And while we have our dining room on a day-to-day basis, we're eating dinner right here at our counter. My husband is usually prepping the adult dinner for after the kids go to bed. My kids are young. We don't eat the same thing at dinner, but usually my two kids sit here, I sit here, my husband is prepping our dinner, and we talk about our day. So it's a really cozy space. These chairs were one of the first secondhand pieces that I bought when we moved into this home. They're Restoration Hardware. I got them off Craigslist, which I'm not even sure Craigslist even exists anymore. I got these 3 rattan stools and I absolutely love them. They're so special just because they're one of the first pieces that I bought for our home and for our newly renovated kitchen. One other big change we made is that it wasn't atypical in the 80s and 90s for there to just be at like a half railing and a column. So we got rid of the half railing. Luckily, the column wasn't structural and really opened the space between the kitchen and the family room so that when we're hosting events, it was really seamless to walk back and forth. I love mixing metals and I really wanted to have impactful light fixtures. So I went with a brushed gold metal. These are actually from Ballard. So the kitchen is probably one of the only spaces that's mostly new just because we completely got it renovated. But I have this brushed gold metal island pendant mixed in with my stainless steel refrigerator. I even have a stainless steel faucet mixed in with my gold hardware. So I believe in mixing metals. I try not to get too caught up in making sure everything's matchy-matchy. Again, I just kind of go with, if I like it, if it speaks to me, then that's how I'm going to decorate my home. And I do think your eyes end up really brushing over and not noticing like the contrast between the gold and brass and the stainless steel. When I'm designing a room, and a tip I always like to give to friends or to family who ask me is to follow these 4 rules. I call them rules, but really I don't believe there are any rules in design. I always like to incorporate brass, wood, something from nature, and porcelain. So that might be, for porcelain, that might be a plate, that might be a vase, wood, maybe your furniture or a box or another object, brass or another metal like silver plate, and something from nature. That could be a plant, that could be seashells, that could be pine cones. I really feel like if you look in your space and something feels off or something is missing, it's one of those 4 things. This is my family room. This is where we spend the most time as a family. Again, 95% of this room is vintage. I think the biggest exception is this couch. Believe it or not, this couch is IKEA, but I love it because I think it still has the traditional vibes with the rolled arms and the skirted fabric. I just didn't want to be worried about investing in an expensive couch when I had 2 young kids, and I also have a dog who constantly gets on the couch. So this is totally perfect for now. Maybe one day I'll get a nicer, higher end couch, but I can throw this in the wash and I don't have to worry about it. That's part of what I also make sure when I'm decorating. I don't want to be worried about anything. I want to make sure that this house can be lived in. My kids in particular, they understand mommy has breakable things, but they also love them. So they know that they can play on the coffee table, for example. I have a brass tic-tac-toe here that they love to play with. And they know now that the breakable things, they just don't touch. Or if they do, they're careful with them. Like there's almost always Legos and rocks in this lidded dish here. I absolutely love these chairs. I found them at a local antique mall and I was so smitten with the birds and the flowers that I bought them immediately. I wasn't even looking for chairs. I had another pair of chairs here that were actually West Elm. They didn't match my style as much anymore. And it's also why I love buying and selling vintage, because I got these chairs for less than my West Elm chairs, sold my West Elm chairs, so I ended up making money. Making money by buying new vintage chairs for my home. But I absolutely love the floral and bird pattern. It really is giving those Grandmillennial vibes. And then the mahogany legs are a little bit more traditional. When we moved in, the ceilings were painted chocolate brown. And the walls were some kind of like peachy coral. And truly, paint transforms everything. And I had my husband paint the ceilings white because I couldn't believe that they had chocolate brown ceilings. And then we hired a painter to repaint them recently because because they still weren't perfect and you could still see some of the brown through. But when in doubt, if a room just isn't speaking to you, looks too dark or too dull, a can of paint can really transform anything. And that was the same with this brick fireplace. We absolutely loved the double brick fireplace. It is a functioning fireplace, but we decided we weren't going to use it as a functioning fireplace. The brick was not a pretty brick. If this had been a pretty old brick, I absolutely would have kept it as is, but it had that new brick, dark red look. So again, I had my husband, I think my brother and my brother-in-law, they all painted this fireplace for me. And I think that's what I love about DIY. While I'm not really great at DIY projects, when there is something that my family contributes to, that stays with the design and with the finished product. So I love this even more. It's not perfect, but I love it even more because my family helped me make it be so. So since we weren't going to use it as a traditional fireplace, I wanted to decorate it. I have always wanted one of these brass fireplace screens. They're so gorgeous. They're always really expensive, and I just lucked out and happened to find one for I think $20 at an estate sale. This is actually a fake fern. I have fake plants throughout my house. I like to say it's not that I don't have a green thumb, it's just that I forget to water them sometimes. So I have a fern here. And then I also got this wicker bench off Craigslist when Craigslist was still a thing. And I just loved the way this looked in the fireplace and decorated it with blue and white and put some books underneath it. So I really, really love how this fireplace has come together, and it's something pretty to look at when you're sitting on the couch. I got this credenza off Facebook Marketplace. It was covered in primer, so it was just this weird streaky white, and I was really pleased to find out when we brought it home that it was actually Thomasville, which is a great American furniture company, and that the hardware, which had also been painted, I was able to boil and get the paint off and learn that it was actually brass hardware. So I really feel like for me, the trick with having kids and decorating your home is to have as much storage as possible. So this credenza is completely filled with their toys. I also have more storage across the room that I'll show next, also completely filled with toys, so we can just hide them at the end of the day or if we're having company over. Again, everything here is vintage or secondhand. I absolutely love these 4 botanical prints. And the matting on them is really what sold them for me. I don't think I would have thought twice about them if they weren't matted with this really excellent detail. Again, this was a Facebook Marketplace find. I love tobacco leaf. It's one of my favorite chinoiserie patterns. It's not actually a tobacco leaf. That's just what the pattern is called. So I was super thrilled to find a pair of these lamps. I love decorating with natural items like seashells. So I have a pile of seashells that I've collected over time in this brass pedestal dish. Really, my secret is that I fill most of this with plastic bags, and then there's just a layer of seashells on top. So really, I'm just giving the illusion of an overflowing collection without killing myself trying to find a million seashells to fill that dish with. This box is a special piece. My husband went to grad school in London, so we spent about 9 months apart when we first started dating. And this box he got from his parents to commemorate his time in London. And it's just such a pretty box. And I love how it complements the blue, the porcelain, the brass, and the seashells. I absolutely love decorating bookshelves. When we moved in, again, this was painted wood, so we painted it white. And the way I approach bookshelves, and this is really where my maximalism comes out the most, is that to me it feels like a puzzle. And so I typically decorate one shelf at a time, and then I'll step back and I'll see how it looks. But my secret for bookshelf decorating, I always start with books, and I try to arrange the books differently across the shelves. Then I will tuck in lots of decorative objects of different heights. And then I also like to put art in the back to make it a little bit more interesting. And I snuck a few plants in. Once I decorated this, I really haven't touched it. I love it so much. Every now and then I'll find a piece and swap it out, but I absolutely love how it looks. I think everything here is vintage or secondhand. I think the lone exception is probably this planter. I think I got it at Home Goods or something like that. And then I also have just all of my pictures of family and friends here on the shelf. There's a lot here, and my goal was to make it look cohesive by using all gold frames. All of these frames are different. Some I find at the thrift store. The thrift store is really one of the best places to get frames, especially if you're looking for color coordinated. They cost like $2 or $3. And then I also have my favorite blue and white pieces. Double happiness jars are one of my favorite pieces to decorate with. I have three double happiness jars in this room alone. And double happiness jars, that symbol is a symbol of good fortune and joy and luck, and they're often used at weddings for a couple that's getting married in China. So absolutely love double happiness and the meaning behind it. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to put in this space, and when I found this drop leaf table, it just came together for me. Right now it's down, but typically we'll have it up. The kids will play Legos on here, or we'll have a puzzle that the whole family is working on. And I just really love how homey it makes it feel when this is up and we have those things out. I also found this on Facebook Marketplace. It is a cast iron candelabra, and I absolutely loved it. I probably still need to get some candles to put in it, but I love it as just this really interesting structural object on my wall. Again, I have some Staffordshire style dogs here that I love, blue and white, real and fake plants. And I also absolutely love this book. It's a Schumacher book, and it has gorgeous interiors on the inside. So I thought it looked pretty to be displayed and opened on an easel, and it functions like artwood. Yeah, I was 8 months pregnant with my first child, my son, when we first picked out this home. We visited a lot of houses all over the city. And ultimately we wanted one that had a big backyard. We live on an acre of land, so we wanted a place where we could put a swing set, where we could have lots of flowers. We're still working on our outdoors because we've spent most of the time focused on our indoor space. And we knew that we were gonna have a growing family, so we also wanted to pick a home that would grow with us. I think a powder room is a great opportunity to have a dramatic moment in a small space. This is my powder room. It's another one of my rooms that's fully wallpapered. I picked this black and white wallpaper. I just love the contrast and the statement it made in this small room. I have a gallery wall right up above the toilet paper holder that features some pieces that I love and have collected over time. I also love vintage mirrors. So I have a gold mirror in here that I love to use. And also, since I have little kids, if you're wondering what this is, it's a mahogany footstool. I just figured if I was gonna have my kids in a footstool in here, I wanted one that was vintage and was pretty and felt like it went with the room. So I found this at an estate sale, actually pretty recently. So we've had like a plastic one in here so the kids could get up and wash their hands. But I absolutely love this mahogany one and how it really fits in with the vibe of the powder room. This is my screen porch. This is not original to the house. We just had this built in the past year. Our deck needed to be knocked down anyways because it wasn't built to code, so we decided to add a screen porch. We absolutely love it. We did splurge and add plastic windows, so that way during pollen season, we're still able to be out here and not have to worry about the furniture or anything else getting pollen all over it. So it really is an all-season room unless it's too cold or too hot. I got this wicker set from a family who'd moved from the north to the south. They'd had this furniture for years and they were ready to part with it. So once again, I was happy to take it off their hands. I think eventually I might recover, the gray chair in particular, but I love this cream color and it's a performance material, so it's really easy to clean off. I really imagined this being like a garden, and so I wanted to have lots of bright colors and lots of florals. And over time, that vision really came together with my pillows. Again, if I had tried to buy all these pillows at one time, I never would have. But from antique malls, from local stores, from Facebook, from Instagram, I shop with other sellers on there. I just absolutely love how this space all came together. One of my favorite pieces in this room is this coffee table right here. It is painted to look like bamboo. And if you open the lid, it was someone's wedding present. So I bought it for someone off Facebook. It was a little big for this space, but it works so perfectly. I didn't care that it was oversized, and now I absolutely love it. I think the green is such a nice contrast to the blue rug, and it's such a unique piece. I don't think there's anything else that could have compared to this. So I absolutely love it. Another really fun piece I have is this side table. It has a horse medallion here and some tassels. So I also knew I needed this. Even though I didn't really have a spot for it, it is more of a bar cart. I decided to use it as a side table and put a lamp on it and decorate with some books, and then this beautiful rose canton pedestal dish. This space is more long than it is wide, so I wanted to use the rugs to divide the living, hanging out, playing area from our eating area. And we eat so many meals out here. Just when the weather is nice, it's just such a relaxed and fun vibe. I'm also absolutely obsessed with this bistro table I got. It's Maitland Smith, which is a very high-end vintage furniture company. I found it at an antique mall, and I just love the monkeys. I think it's so fun, and this space should be fun. It's outdoors, we're all hanging out, we're all relaxing. So I absolutely love these monkeys, and then I paired them with some wood bistro chairs. That'll eventually get recovered, but for now, I think it all works perfectly in this space. I also absolutely love this green baker's rack. Again, I think it's a really nice tie-in to my coffee table and its green legs. And I just have this displayed with some pretty pieces. We do drink out of these glasses, but I wanted to display some of my pretty pink and hand-painted floral glassware. I have lots of crystal, blue and white. One of my favorite pieces is this plate holder. There was always one at an antique mall that I go to that was not for sale. And so when I finally found one, I absolutely had to have it. So I absolutely love this space and being able to display more pretty items out here on the baker's rack. I decided to paint my ceiling a blue. In the South, in Charleston, in New Orleans, they call this haint blue. And that is to keep the evil spirits away. So I I wanted to honor that, and I also wanted to have a blue ceiling to add some additional dimension and interest to this room, especially since the rest of it is painted white and the floors are a lighter taupe color. Now let's go to my foyer. So this is my foyer. Typically people enter in through the garage, so I use this mostly as a decorative space. I love an umbrella holder and vintage canes. They're just so fun to find and something that you don't see in every house. So I have a vintage cane collection. And then I also got this pair of antique Dutch oil landscapes at an estate sale. I originally got them to sell, but they're so unique and so beautiful and work so well with my wall color that I couldn't part with them. So they also were a foster fail and ended up on my wall. This light fixture we recently installed. I got it probably 3 or 4 years ago for $10 at an estate sale. It's vintage, it's Italian, and it just needed to be rewired. So I have a friend whose husband is a handyman. He came, he finally rewired and hung it for me, and I just absolutely love the impact it has on a room. And it's really not expensive to rewire lights or lamps. In fact, lamps in particular, you can take to like Ace Hardware and they'll rewire it for you. So I'm never afraid of buying a lamp or a light fixture because it's really not cost prohibitive to get it rewired, and it just makes such an impact in this little foyer. I'm still working on my stair hallway, but we had awful beige carpet on the stairs, and I knew I wanted to rip it out and replace it with a really fun stair runner. So I found this cheetah print. This is not vintage, this is new, but I absolutely love how the cheetah print I think is a really traditional pattern, and it matches really nicely with my oriental rugs and just gives a little moment to the staircase. I still need to work on hanging art, but what I do have is a vintage French tapestry that I absolutely love. It looks beautiful as you come down the stairs. And again, it's a fun piece. You don't often see tapestries hanging in homes. And I just love the scene of the 3 women, the little girl holding her dog up, and the man. So this is just a really fun space and shows that even a small space like a foyer can really make a statement in your home. Right now we're in Raleigh, North Carolina. I live in North Raleigh, which has a little bit more space than downtown Raleigh. My house was actually built on a former pine tree lot. So outside there's lots of pine trees all around. There's deer. So it's really idyllic. And even though I'm still in the city, it feels like I have a little bit of the country here. Always lots of fun animals too. This house is original to the 1980s, 1990s. And when we moved in, really the owners hadn't done anything. I think there were 2 owners before my husband and I bought it. And so we have been working slowly over the past 6 years to really update the home and make it feel like us. Now we'll head upstairs and we'll check out one of my kids' bedrooms. This is my son's room, and in both my kids' rooms, I like to balance decorating with vintage with honoring the fact that they're kids and what they love to do and play with. I also make sure that they have a say in what goes up in their room, and as a result, I really think this is a perfect blend and a great example of how you can both decorate with vintage and pieces that will grow with kids and also let them be kids. So I got this antique Jenny Lind bed frame off of Facebook, and I let my son pick out some art that he loved. Now, he's not going to the store and picking this out. I gave him a couple options, but he really loves this hunt scene, and I hung up this ship plate. Over here is his desk. He absolutely loves hockey and golf, Legos, so I really wanted to make sure that we honored what he liked to do. I got him this brass golf lamp that he absolutely loves. He is a fan of the NC State Wolf Pack, so I got him this little wolf to hang up above his art. And this is just a space for him to hang out, do his homework or a puzzle, and I think it came together really cute. What he also loves is Star Wars and Legos. One of the best ways to incorporate vintage into a kid's room is through furniture, because it's furniture that can hopefully grow with them as they get older. My son loves Legos, and he gets so many that I needed to be able to display them. And so I got this really adorable bamboo inspired mahogany bookshelf, and he just displays all his Legos on it, and I just absolutely love it. And if he ever grows out of Legos, then we can replace it with the next thing he's interested in. I also got him this hanging shelf. I found this at the thrift store, and so we just display his Legos. I really want this bedroom to be a representation of him and a representation of what he loves. I think one of my favorite pieces in this room is this rocking chair. I'll often go antiquing with my kids, and he was sitting in this rocking chair at the antique mall. I think he was watching something on my phone, and we were getting ready to go, and he said, "Mommy, I need this rocking chair." And who am I to argue with that? So I said, "You know what? It's yours." So we took it to the front. We paid for it. We put it in his room. His stuffed animals hang out in it. And I just really want to inspire a love of vintage in my kids as well. Home means to me a space where at the end of the day, you come home, you feel calm, you feel cozy, you feel exactly like yourself. I want whoever comes to my home to instantly feel relaxed, like they can sink into a comfy chair. I just believe that home should be your safe place and your sanctuary. And I really believe that it also is where everyone's personality should shine. So while I'm the primary decorator of the home, I always try to make sure to bring in what my husband likes and what my kids like, so that it really does feel like a house that's for a family. Well, Homeworthy, it's been great having you, but the antique stores close at 5, so I better be going. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.